he had the first plant, electric plant in Mountain Home. Can't remember his first name, but anyway, Tommy Rome's. White. And it was electric gin. But in I had somewhere about how many bales of cotton was baled. In Baxter County. And around 2,000 bales in 1919 and 1920, the records that I seen from the clippings of looking backward, there was cotton was one of the major things. Can you imagine a little old bumblebee cotton just about this tall? How low you had to get it? And South Arkansas, it goes about like this, you know. So you had to, when you got home from school, when you eat a cold biscuit or whatever there was to eat, a little sorghum, you hit the cotton patch at that time of year. Dow Lewis, his grandpa worked for me, and he knows those stories. And so it's a different way of life altogether. And some people wouldn't even hardly accept that all that things were like they were at that time. 1900 population of Mountain Home was 363. 1910 it was 446. Cotton baled in 1919, 2,870. 1920 must have been a little drier year, 2,286. And just, oh, you know, just I'm not worried with all these statistics. One thing I kind of skipped over here, the county judge's office in Arkansas, duties have changed quite considerably. But during my time, I handled the juvenile court for 17 and a half years. Anybody that was filed on juvenile court. I handled the paternity court, better known as the bastardly court, excuse me, for many years. And that was a tough one, really. But then the county court, a lot of things are governed. For instance, the collection tax is the final word. When you appear before the tax commission and you don't agree with how they've raised your tax, your next bump is to the county judge's office, you know. And those are tough things. But there was a lot of things. Dependent neglect. Constitution requires the county judge. I've signed a many court order for kids when we call it welfare workers then, when they had to go out and take children that were being dependent neglect. I had to go with them, and we had to sign a court order to do that. But anyway, I better wind this down because I know your fanny's getting sore by now. But after all this hot air, I can't think of any more stories to tell on Terry. And
thank God.
But anyway, it's been fun, and I've enjoyed it, and I've just kind of skipped over what I'd prepared. I didn't know for sure what you wanted to hear, but some of you was here, and I surmised there's some that wasn't here during the time period that I was in office. But time goes on, we get older, and it sure is fun while it's going on, and it sure was for me. And the thing that things that keeps you going with all the complaints that you get and all that is for the good you can do. The good always outweighs that you can't get to. I'd like to think it does if you're trying real hard, and I think it did, and I think the people thought they were getting their money's worth. I'd like to think they did, but I had one old boy that ran against me twice, and he ran against Joe Dillard the first time. By the way, there were 7 people run when I hung it up. You know, one elected, of course, Joe Dillard, but there were 7 people that run. Any questions?
Were you active in recruiting people to come down here during that fast time? I mean, did Mountain Home have a recruiting? I mean, what made it grow? What was influential in getting the county to grow?
Funny story goes with that too. Clyde Ellis was congressman for this area, and he was from Bentonville, by the way, over there. And Norfolk Dam was the first major public works program in this part of the country, anywhere. People came here and worked for 50 cents an hour and hung off that bluff down there kicking rocks loose for 50 cents an hour. They lived in some of the most inhumane quarters, I guess I'd say. Well, it wasn't nasty quarters, but tents, you know, and tarps and so forth. There wasn't enough people to places to house them all. But down there around what was Ellis at the time, Salesville now, and when the Corps of Engineers, when Congress authorized the study, and whenever they had the Corps of Engineers had this project in Norfolk on the drawing board, really literally a drawing board then. You know, there had been a new bridge built at Henderson. Henderson was on this side of the lake at that time by the WPA, Public Works Administration. And it had only been completed about 2 or 3 years when the lake filled up. But one of the engineers said, Jake, you know what? We could raise this thing 27 feet and we could make a hydroelectric flood control out of this project. And it was just flood control to start with, at the beginning. He said, yeah, we're going to wipe out that new bridge at Henderson. He said, so? And so at a Lions Club, one of the engineers told us that story back then. It came to the Mountain Home Lions Club. But that's what started the growth. You know, when Social Security went in 37, enacted in 37, I think it took effect in 38, I heard my grandpa, who had come to live with us, and my dad, sitting at the battery radio listening, you know, and they said, that will never work. Social Security will never work. And we had never heard of a pensioner back then, somebody who drawed retirement, called them pensioners. And he said, we had never, and I only knew of one, a merchant marine man that retired here. And Grandpa said, you know what's going to happen? He said, Mac Curley and Jack Hornbuckle's going to sell them the land, and the blackberry bushes are going to get their clothes, and they'll be gone, you know. But once they built that lake, nobody even thought about retirement. Nobody thought about tourism. Nobody thought much about fishing except the old canvasbacks that were here, you know. But all that developed, retirement, Social Security, and jobs, and there's where it started. And then, of course, Bull Shoals butt right up, you know, next. And
my mother used to say, I think if it was just filled that other dam, we'll be okay.
yeah.
We're not starved to death.
Oh, wow, you can't imagine. And the thing about it is, everybody thought we had to have a dam then. You know, Mountain Home's doing good, and Bull Shoals getting started. They're going to dam the Buffalo. Well, I'm glad they didn't, but and that was a big fight too. Anyway, any other questions? Yeah.
Tell us about Norma Wood and the development of the Baxter County Library System. I understand that the City Hall and the Fire Department and the library used to be in that brick building 1 block north of the northeast corner of the square.
Yeah.
Yep.
Jesse Coffey was the county clerk,
And
the
building
city clerk.
The building that the city police department is in now was the library until it moved here.
Yeah.
Tell us about.
I can tell you the whole
Tell
story.
us about the development of the library system.
Whenever I took office, the library was up over the city hall, and where you're talking about, at the end of, and the fire truck was down here, you know, and I read an article about that recently. Margie said when the fire siren went off, you just might as well quit work for a while. But anyway, it was up there, and the Coterie and Tagamaga, how do you put it? Yeah, the clubs like that supported it. You know, they didn't have a tax back then. And so Margie Dalkey ran the library for many years. And I got a notice from the General Services Administration in Dallas, the Dallas office, that there was 3.7 acres of, this is another story too, in the government village west of the square that was built by the government. 43 houses, I think, at one time for Bull Shoals, for Norfolk engineers and so forth, and for Bull Shoals. Anyway,
Drive.
huh?
It was Crescent Drive.
Crescent Drive. We were awarded that 1.7 acres. By the way, there's 7 graves over there on that yard. And we had to prove up on it for 20 years. I had to write a letter to the General Service Administration. But that's where we built our first library. And then, of course, built onto it, and outgrew it, and here we are today, you bet. But I believe it was a 7-member board. I know Bill Thompson was on it, and Mr. Arnett was on it in different ones. But it was another thing that was coming right along in progress with the other things that was going on. Anyone else?
I have a comment. You mentioned that everybody had to pay road tax
Yeah.
or work so many days.
Yeah.
I have the original excuse that a doctor wrote for my grandfather because he had a broken arm and it grew back crooked.
You bet.
That he was not able to work on the roads.
You bet. You bet. It was a real thing. I mean, before the road tax, it was 3 days of free labor to the county road department, and they had, I call it a slip, some call it Fresno. You know, the pull by mule had 2 handles in it, and they dumped it, you know, and the first graders were horse-drawn, of course. I know where there's 2 or 3 of those at. And it was a pretty hard way to go, you know, wasn't very many roads, and they wasn't very good. You know, some of you can remember that real well. Howard Reeves probably can remember. Low water bridges and no bridges at all.
No bridges.
Yeah. Those low water bridges were a real problem, because people were getting washed away and drowned, and we know some that did.
Across the lake one time, it's just too much trouble. We were loving to think something. I had one day, you know, he had to catch a ferry, he had to go over there, pick the girl up. You couldn't catch the same ferry back.
Oh, yeah.
And if you got back after midnight,
It was
there's
unreal.
one ferry in the middle of the lake.
Whenever you headed toward Henderson and you met a bunch of cars, you know you done missed the boat. You had to wait a while. But anyway,
That's the best thing Beta Shed ever did for us.
oh yeah, that's a
And
wonderful
John
thing.
McClellan.
I've
John
got,
told me, said, I've got to get my hospital first, but okay, baby, you get your bridge.
you bet, there's quite a story went with that when Senator McClellan in Washington finally gave in to Veda, after she voided with him almost up there, and I mean that very,
She snuck in.
Yeah.
She snuck in his office. His executive secretary gave her the key to his office, and the next morning, he said he's always feels better every morning. She checked,
Time to be there, wasn't it?
used that key
yeah.
and got into his office, was waiting on him when he got there. And a week later was the Watergate.
Isn't that wonderful?
She said if that had happened a week later, I wouldn't have done it.
They'd have dismissed the whole thing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, she wouldn't- I wouldn't have gone in there.
Well,
And I know that firsthand because I represented it.
it's been good, and whenever I get these other 3 boxes done, I might want to come back.